Welcome to 99th Monkey Liberty News for Friday, December 6th, 2013. Yes, Nelson Mandela has died at age 95, and there are a lot of tributes to him being offered, and his name is plastered everywhere in the news. And he did work to end apartheid, and he spent 27 years in prison. And there certainly are admirable qualities that he possessed. But Alex Jones gave kind of an alternative view today of Nelson Mandela. And not only of Nelson Mandela, but of the kind of revolution, the kind of change that he and people like him have worked to bring about. And not all good. And in the same light, I want to mention the Hunger Games movie, Catching Fire, and some of the impact that it's having on young people. I read the Hunger Games books, and I think it's a tremendous story, and I think there's great potential for real change and positive change to come from this kind of a story that people can relate to. Catching Fire, The Hunger Games, Young Heroes Reinvent the Unsettling World of Politics, Violence, and Revolution. And some of the revolution isn't always bad, but a violent revolution very often does not take people where they really want to go, because with a violent revolution you inherit the legacy of blood on your hands. And also this revolution is often a part of the problem reaction solution process, where the problem is extreme pressure, and perhaps government aspects of our government are intentionally creating extreme pressure now. So you have the problem, which is extreme pressure, tyranny, poverty, and then you have the reaction, which is often revolution. And then you have the solution that has been prepared by the globalists, by the people in control, to direct people into a situation in which they actually have even less freedom and fewer resources than they did under the problem phase, but they don't realize it because it's change, and they recognize it as being positive, at least initially. Then once the dust has settled, it's too late. And just one example of how this has occurred in our country to some extent is the Occupy Wall Street. U.S. are mindless Americans falling prey to the collectivist trap. And this is an InfoWars article, just as kind of some background information. And then we have a couple of YouTube videos that provide more understanding. This is Antony Sutton, and the title of the video is Wall Street Funded the Bolshevik Revolution. Now, why would they do that? Well, because they stood to benefit from it. The social engineers never do anything or permit anything willingly that will create any kind of circumstance other than they themselves benefiting. And another video that relates to the same topic is also from Antony Sutton. Bankers love socialism. And this gets a little more in depth. This is a 44-minute video. And this is a really significant topic, because if we're not careful, if we're not hearing from God, if we're not treading lightly, we may easily end up with more dire circumstances than what we have experienced up till this point because of collectivism, because of falling prey to collectivism, and just being in this trap. And of course, under collectivism, it really is an animal farm kind of a situation where there always are people at the top of the pyramid administering the system, and they will always have more, and the people who are at the bottom will always have less. So this is really just another trap, and a trap that Nelson Mandela helped to lay in South Africa, and a trap that is probably currently being laid for us in this country today. So if we can be wise, we can resist it, not fall into that trap, not accept when the problem, reaction, solution it begins to occur. First of all, not necessarily participate in the reaction, and certainly not embrace the solution if it is collectivism. Another story that is in the news from yesterday that just seemed to fit with this: church group targeted by city for feeding homeless. And we're seeing more articles similar to this, more communities who are shipping off their homeless to basically what amounts to internment camps. Some homeless have been actually sent to FEMA camps, and other charitable operations being shut down, not permitted to help people. This contributes also to the push for government-administered collectivism. If the charities and the private individuals and communities and societies who typically have extended aid to the poor and those in need are forbidden from doing so, that increases the pressure that contributes to the reaction. It increases the likelihood that people will rebel. Both because, people like to feel like they have the ability to do something about social ills that they can see right in front of them. And this denying charitable organizations from helping the poor not only hurts the poor, but it also hurts the people who are showing empathy, who are being tender-hearted, who are extending their hands to the poor. It dehumanizes, it contributes to dehumanizing our culture. And there's a video here. They want people to have a permit to use this vacant lot that has been used to feed the poor. And it's a great thing if your community has, if your church or some organization that you're in contact with has an organized effort to feed the homeless, give blankets when it's cold, so on and so forth. It can be a great cause to give some time and whatever you have to. Moving into a different topic, here from Legal Insurrection is an article even more on Obama lawlessness. And this is actually from Tuesday, and it's more information on the testimony before Congress concerning Obama's lawlessness. And I want to just take a brief look at this. Just consider the difference between lawlessness and living under law. And when this happens at the top of the food chain, when Obama is not obeying laws, it really sets a trap for all of us. I mean, it is the implication that he can become a dictator or is a dictator is a concern. But I think even the broader concern is that we lose the rule of law. We have actually lost the rule of law in this country. And Karen Hudes is somebody who has communicated that issue. And this is an older article. This is from Koila Pele's blog, and this, you can find this video all over. But Karen Hudes on October 20th said the U.S. has to come around to the rule of law. And in the interview, and the video link is here, she said, this is all about to flip. This cover-up is about to lift. And she also stated that she believes there is about a 95% likelihood that we will have the rule of law restored. And here's that quote. Karen Hudes says, the U.S. has to come around to the rule of law, and we are on track with a 95% likelihood, and that is why I think the dollar is not going to tank. So she believes that this can happen, that we can have a restoration of the rule of law, and I certainly hope that she is correct about that. Now, if you don't know a whole lot or understand a whole lot about the rule of law, this is a reasonable place to begin to learn, 1215.org. And rule of law really refers more to common law and historical, what's considered common law, natural law. And I did a quick search and found this website. Now, I'm not this, youshouldbuygold.com. I'm not, that's not really where I'm coming from. I think there are alternative ways to be safe and have a hedge against the fiat currency. But what I want to focus on here is, this is chapter 17, Common Law, Natural Law, and Classical Liberalism. And this article explains the history of common law and natural law, and it's helpful to understand where law has come from and what the purpose of law really is. And here's an interesting paragraph. English common law based on the Ten Commandments. About the year 1230, just after the Magna Carta, Henry Lloyd Bracton thoroughly organized Britain's common law system into 4 Latin volumes called On the Laws and Customs of England. Henry de Bracton, called the father of common law, was an ecclesiastic who had been a rector, an archdeacon, and a chancellor of Exeter Cathedral. That was typical for the legal profession in England. And another good quote here, human law must rest its authority ultimately upon the authority of that law which is divine. Far from being rivals or enemies, religion and law are twin sisters, friends, and mutual assistance. That was actually a quote from James Wilson, original Supreme Court Justice, framer of U.S. Constitution, framer of the Pennsylvania State Constitution, first law professor of the University of Pennsylvania, founder of Penn's Law School. So the basis of common law is the Ten Commandments, and additional law is organized around that foundation of the Ten Commandments. And this is really just a great article. There is a lot of really good information here. And just as I was reading through some of this, I was reminded of a passage in the Bible from 2 Kings 17 that people had been moved into part of the land that had been given to Israel, and things were not going well for them until they began to obey God's law. And I'll just read these 3 verses, 25 through 27. It was so at the beginning of their dwelling there that they did not fear the Lord. Therefore the Lord sent lions among them, which killed some of them. So they spoke to the king of Assyria, saying, the nations whom you have removed and placed in the cities of Samaria do not know the rituals of the God of the land. Therefore he has sent lions among them, and indeed they are killing them, because they do not know the rituals of the God of the land. Then the king of Assyria commanded, saying, send there one of the priests whom you brought from there. Let him go and dwell there, and let him teach them the rituals of the God of the land. So, that's the old covenant. We're under the new covenant now. And the law of God is written on our hearts. And we're changed. We're transformed from the inside out. But I think there's still a truth here that is relevant to our lives and even to our nation, that when we don't obey God's fundamental laws, there are consequences that come from that. And the law of reaping and sowing is a new covenant aspect of the law. And we definitely reap. If we sow good, we reap good. If we sow evil, we reap evil. And that never changes. And common law, natural law, they do two things, I believe. One is they help us to recognize what good and evil are. And of course, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was the downfall of Adam and Eve. But to some extent, in order to live together, we need to have some kind of guidelines. And recognizing the kind of behavior that pleases God is helpful. And of course, the second purpose is just for people to live together. We need to have some kind of an understanding of what behavior is acceptable and what behavior is not acceptable. And common law, natural law have proven for many hundreds of years to be at least a good foundation for that kind of code that allows for people to live together. And when we've added too much to it, as we have in this country, it becomes confusing. And now in this country, to a large degree, we have statutory law, which really doesn't have any foundation. It's what's convenient for somebody who is in control or in charge. And the natural law and common law in this country are being eroded away. And that's the kind of restoration of the rule of law that Karen Hudes and people like her are asking us to push for and have that rule of law restored in this country. So hoping that does happen. For a bit of good news to end the week with. From Natural News, MAP reveals multi-billion-dollar economic growth potential for states that legalize marijuana and hemp. And this Natural News article doesn't actually have that map, but they did have a link to it. And this is the map. This is the first map to prove how valuable legalizing marijuana would be for America. And it shows what regions can really greatly benefit from legalization of marijuana. So here's the first paragraph here. Keeping marijuana illegal is possibly keeping billions of dollars out of the economies in the most rural parts of the United States, preventing these regions from banking on America's biggest cash crop. And then it goes on to describe just how big the cash crop is. And historically, hemp and marijuana have not been illegal in this country. George Washington used marijuana, and the Constitution is written on paper made from hemp. So again, it's returning to our not too distant history. In the case of natural law and common law, that is even our distant history. But we no longer have valued some aspects of life that our forebears valued, and it was of great benefit to them. And if we had the same values, we could have the same benefits. And winter is definitely here, even though officially it's not winter until December 21st. I think many of us are experiencing cold weather. And here from Natural News, 5 tips to soothe and relieve dry skin during cold months. Hope those tips are helpful to you, and thanks for tuning in for today's news. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Hoping that you will love one another, take care, and insist on liberty.